Hello everyone, this is Prithvi from the Tech Bulletin, and here we are shooting the second ever video for the series Startups Today and Tomorrow. So in the first video which went live last week, we spoke with Martin from the startupprofessional.com, and the discussion was mainly about the kind of challenges faced by the startups in the initial stages. So here we are on the second video, and we have a couple of young people from Mumbai. A couple of young monks, I would say, Aman and Sumit from monkpro.com. And they have been responsible for quite a few startups, and most of them failed. And but this is kind of a duo who have started to celebrate the failures, and that is what the book which has been co-authored by both of them says. The title of the book is How I Do My Ventures: Celebrating Failures. So both these people have learned, pretty efficiently to celebrate the failures and not to get demotivated from the kind of challenges which startups face in the beginning. So I have known them for quite a while, and I really like the kind of point of view they have about the startup industry and the startup professionals. So I really hope for a great, interesting session with both of them, and I really hope that you people will enjoy that as well. So let's get on to the interview. Okay. Hello Sumit and Aman, how are you?
Hello Prithvi.
Hello Prithvi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you people doing?
Yeah, good.
So I think we already spoken about the kind of talk we will be having and this. So I'm Prithvi from the Tech Bulletin, and this is the second episode which we are shooting for Startups Today and Tomorrow series. So in the first episode we had Martin Jueling from startupsprofessional.com, and we actually spoke about the kind of challenges which are faced by the startups in the initial stages. So both of you have been kind of experienced in the startup industry, at least in India, and you people have quite a bit learned how to celebrate the failures. And that's what your book says. So before I start with the questions which I have set for you people, I just want to know a bit about your background and how you people started with entrepreneurship.
Okay. Actually, at the age of 16 or 17, somehow I felt in love with business. Okay. And I felt it was the most easiest thing to do. And I am one of the most lazy person in this world. And I thought that's the best option for a lazy guy. Just sit at a counter and start counting money. Customers will be coming and they will be paying.
That was the greatest misconception.
So I belong from a middle class family. They have a very set agenda before them. Once they are born, they go to school, college, then job, marry, and so somehow I am a kind of rebel. So I have always repelled those traditional things. So I took this path, and then I went for engineering. I was traveling on two ships, of course. One foot was on a traditional path, and one foot was on this never seen, never tried path. And there was a point when I had to choose that whether engineering or whether to choose my dreams. And then I left engineering. I'm a dropout, of course, and I completed my graduation with bachelor's in management studies, and then finally jumped into this business. That okay, no matter what, I will be continuing with the business.
So what was the main, what was the main motive behind you getting into this entrepreneurship? Was it, the being the rebel kind of nature? Was it doing something against the family culture, or was it just pure money?
See, I would say that at that time I actually didn't realize what's the reason. It's just that you feel good about something. So it was just I saw people sitting at counters doing business. They were having good life, great life. So I never saw what kind of struggle they went through. I thought it's just the thing: open up a shop or just start up a office, and you will have paying customers and you will be making money. It's only once I started, I realized that I am into a great trouble now, because I have come here with complete misconceptions.
So what was your
there was any motivation.
What was your age when you both of you you first started with the first venture? How old were you?
15.
And what was the
That
venture
was the
about?
first. We were in 11th standard, junior college at that time.
So and what was the venture about?
It was actually an education portal regarding online tutorials, like junior college, secondary school students. They could come online, and it was on a subscription basis, the business model. You could buy subscriptions, and you could contact tutors who were enlisted in our portal. You could contact the tutors and get your doubts solved by them online.
And what were the kind of the lessons which you learned from that failed venture? I just recall that was failed as well.
Yeah, that was the first failed venture. So actually, we never put required effort into that business. What we learned from it was to take a stand for our dreams or our idea, because that was the first time when I had to face my family. That was the first time when I had to confront them that okay, this is the path I am going to choose for myself. That was the first time when first potential customer told me no. So how to take that no and how to take that failure, and then after falling, how to start again. That is I think was one of the most precious lesson that I got from there.
So well, now you've come through a long way, starting from your first venture and working on the venture right now, the monkpro.com. What has been your experience over the years, and what you think, what according to you has changed in the startup industry?
See, there is a tremendous change. I would say it's a revolution since then, because it's been, I guess, 8 9 years since I have started up. So the first time I started up, the environment around us, the ecosystem around us, and today the ecosystem around us is completely different. I would give that credit to companies like Flipkart and Amazon. They have completely changed this ecosystem. So when we started,
when you talk about the ecosystem, what do you think are the components, or what do you think are the factors of that ecosystem? Could you just elaborate that a little bit?
see, from very basic, first it comes your friends. Why I'm saying these things, I will just explain you. But for me, first it's friends, your very closest circle, then your family, then the immediate environment where you stay or society, and then the problem you are trying to solve, the people concerned with that. Why I'm saying this, these are the important components, is because what happens when you get an idea? You first go and discuss with your friend. And if your friend has a negative mentality at that time, if they have heard everything negative about starting up, they would advise you negative, right? If you manage to cross that, you will go to your family. If you manage to cross that, you will go to the society, then customers, then people. So at that point of time, it was very much negative. Now there is a lot of awareness, and now when you go to your friends and you tell them, "Oh, I have quit my job, I have quit my engineering, I am doing this," they are actually they feel proud of you. That okay, you are choosing something different. We know it's no use following the same path, because if you are putting in the same effort that everyone is putting in, you are going to get the same result that everyone is getting. See, another most important component I would say in a business is finance. So how a financial circle or economy looks towards the startup is very important. It's very different in USA or other countries. It's very different in India. It was very different 10 years ago. It's very different today. Initially, what were our options if we need to go for a business? You can only go to banks. So banks would ask you for collateral securities and all those things. And if you actually can manage to place a collateral security, then actually you don't need any loan from them. So it's a very famous adage that banks give loans to them, those who don't need it. And today it's a different situation. People are ready to invest on your idea, on your capability, which was not the case 10 years back. So this is one of the most important factors, I would say.
Okay, so but well, we have spoken about it. Let's just talk about yourself and your venture first. The monkpro.com. You have recently started with the venture. What exactly it is, and what are you trying to target with the new startup?
See, I would take this opportunity to really explain a very bigger audience about our vision. Not exactly what is monkpro.com today, but where monkpro.com wants to go and how it is going to revolutionize the whole e-commerce sector. See, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, supermarkets were the big thing. It was the hype. It was the thing. People were going to supermarkets and it was a huge thing that they would say, okay, I am buying products from supermarket. And it was considered great. 10 years now, down the line, today's time or just say 5 years back, it has been replaced by e-commerce. So now you see, every next person is purchasing from e-commerce. Most of them have tried purchasing from e-commerce, at least I would say. But do you think it is going to continue for next 10 years? It is not. So there is going to something that will replace it. And this is what we are trying to do, social commerce. So monkpro.com is a social commerce platform. We have been saying that customer is a king, but in true sense, I don't believe that even today customer is a king. 20 years back, it was retailers who were the king because retailers used to choose what product they want to sell to the customer. They would push and customers would buy. Today, even in e-commerce, I won't say they are king because kings never go to your doors. You have to go to the king's door. What happens today? If you need air conditioner, refrigerator, mobile phone, anything, you have to go to Google. You have to search different e-commerce sites. You have to ask them, please show me the price, show me the models, show me the specification. Customer is asking you. They are begging you basically. So this is not right. What we are trying to do is get these e-commerce sites, get these retailers to go to these customers and show them their product. Don't call those customers to your home. You visit them. You pay them a visit. And this is what going to happen via social commerce platform. Where are today people are found on this virtual world? They are to be found on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or similar sites. Basically, they are social networking sites. We can call these sites as their comfort zone. And when you place ads or bombard advertisements on them, basically you are pushing them out of their comfort zone and bringing them to these e-commerce sites. Rather than, I would say, let customers be there in their comfort zones, which is Facebook, YouTube, and take your products there. So this is what going to happen through Mongrow.com. Soon we will be introducing app, Android app and iOS app and all those things. It will be called Monknity. So wherein customer could connect all his social networking sites. Like if you are using Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook and YouTube, you can connect all four of these sites on a single platform, wherein a customer will come and through that window he can access everything. Right? At the same place, you will have complete e-commerce platform also, a selling platform wherein e-commerce platforms like Flipkart, Snapdeal, everyone will be available and they will be selling through Facebook communities. We have a lot of communities, a lot of pages. So it is about relevance. Now today you don't know your sellers. When you go to buy from Flipkart, you are afraid buying from other than WS Retail because you don't know your sellers. Who are they? But this will completely change it. You will buy through the communities that you have liked. You will buy through the pages that you have liked. So there is a relevance. And plus you are not moving out of the Facebook. You are using it right there. You are chatting, you are talking, you are updating your status. At the same time, you discover the product that you need. And you are buying it without moving out of your comfort zone. So this is what Mongrow is all about.
So making it more social was the approach, or making it more trustable was the approach when you first started with Mongrow?
Sumit can continue with this.
Yeah, it was basically building trust among the sellers. As of now, if someone goes on Flipkart and tries to buy, Flipkart has built a trust over a period on its platform. In terms of Facebook social media communities, the communities have built a trust over a period with the users. Those users have a relevance with the communities. So when the communities sell them the product, they have a relevance with the seller and the product, due to which they have a trust factor, which increases the customer's comfort zone in buying products.
So in this kind of scenario, what if a new seller just wants to come in and maybe join the e-commerce platform which you people are selling, and how do you want to address that issue? How do you want to build the trust for a new seller who just wants to come in and maybe start selling the product right from the day one?
It will be very simple. There are two things on our website, on our platform basically. There are two important components. That is, one is community, those pages that customers have liked, and the sellers who are interested in selling their products, basically small businesses. So they can come and sign up and they can list all their products along with the specification, price and everything. Now the pages, the communities who have those kind of audience, people are buying from communities, right? So communities will choose which seller they have to promote and through which seller they want to sell their product, either under their brand name or either under seller's brand name. So a seller it's like a dating site. A seller has to convince the community that they are the perfect match for them. They have the rightest product, they have the good quality and a right price. So at every point of time, there will be a quality check from both the sides. Even Mongrow will do that, and even community will ensure that their name doesn't get spoiled in the process. So they will definitely ensure that quality is good, pricing is right. So in that process, I think customer is going to win always.
So well, competition is one of the most one of the biggest challenges which which is faced by the startups in the beginning. So what kind of competition are you guys facing for Monk Pro, and how do you plan to tackle that?
See, right now, I would say the kind of thing we are trying to do, everyone is a competitor because we are running against e-commerce companies. We are pushing e-commerce companies out of their comfort zone. Today, they are sitting at their home and expecting customer to knock their doors. So they are sitting in a comfort zone, and we are making them to come to at the place where the customers are. So definitely big companies, small companies, all kind of e-commerce companies are going to resist this. But then when I say community, so any community, basic average community, they have an audience of more than 5 lakh, 10 lakhs. And if we see global market, most of them have audience of 1 million, 2 million. So all we have to do is convince one community and we get untapped audience of 10 lakh, 20 lakh. So today, when Flipkart or Snapdeal go for advertisement, only way they can go and acquire customer is advertisement for them. So when they do advertisement, they can get 10 customers, 1,000 customers. Basically, if 1,000 people are clicking that ad, you get 1,000 untapped customers, right? But in our case, if we get one community, we manage to convince one community, at a go we get 10 lakh. So where is 10 lakh and where is 1,000? So we have started small, but within no time we are going to just defeat everyone.
And so how much successful you think this approach of yours is going to be successful in the coming time, maybe like around 5 years down the line?
See, 5 years down the line, if you are asking, I think this would have replaced completely the e-commerce. I'm not saying I would be the only player, but of course Flipkart, Snapdeal, Amazon, and many others, they are intelligent enough to know that social commerce is the next thing. Once the trend starts, even they will try to shift to that, and it's very easy for them. They already have a customer base, they already have the vendors, they already have the clout of money, power, everything. So everyone is going to shift to social commerce, and no matter whether we do it or they do it, our vision is make customer kings. It is going to happen. So in next 5 years, it is going to happen definitely.
So well, not talking about not talking about your point of view. If you talk about the customer's point of view, what do you think has changed in their perspective that they are trying maybe they are experimenting with the social e-commerce, or maybe they are going to experiment the social e-commerce. What do you think has changed in the approach in the customers?
See, when we look at the data today, when we analyze the data, the patience time, the patience they have, customers, they are losing patience. Initially, they used when they used to go to supermarkets, they had the patience of hours. They used to go for window shopping. They used to spend hours bargaining for the products and all those things. Then came the e-commerce. They used to spend 10 minutes, 20 minutes on e-commerce sites, and they would have different options also, 10 options, 20 options probably. So, but now with mobile commerce, the next thing after e-commerce that came was mobile commerce, and I would say it has a very short lifespan right now, because before mobile commerce can capture, it will be converted into social commerce. So in mobile commerce, the patience has gone, I guess, below 2 minutes or 3 minutes. They don't wait for 10 seconds for a page to load. So just imagine what kind of patience level they have. So at this point of time, when you ask your customers that please come to our house, knock our door, ring the bell, and wait for the servant to call the owner to meet you, it is not going to happen. They are not going to wait for more than 10-20 seconds. So what can you do? The best thing you can do is go to the customer's house, because patience level has gone down.
Okay, so when we talk about e-commerce coming before 10 years, and when we talk about social commerce and mobile commerce coming in now, how long do you think that mobile commerce and the social commerce can sustain in this market? Because well, the market has been highly competitive, and every 5 to 10 years down the line, we see a different approach coming to the market. We see a different approach coming to the customers as well as the entrepreneurs. So how long you think this approach can sustain in the market, and what next?
See, social commerce itself is the next thing. Still not, it has still not got the awareness that it deserves. So it is even difficult for me to predict what would happen 15 years down the line, because market is changing in such a rapid pace. No one has thought that e-commerce would die, but I would say 2 years down the line, no one would even ask what is e-commerce. With Facebook bringing .org, everyone knows about it. The next 500 million people would get internet for free. And what do you think? If Facebook is providing you the internet, they would definitely be biased with what sites you use, what products you buy. They have all the cloud they ever needed. They know you very well. You are signed up on their sites. So Facebook is going to lead this revolution, and it is a social commerce site. I don't think so that it will easily let social commerce go out of fashion. It is going to be there minimum of next 15 years.
So well, in social commerce, what do you think is the most important factor which you or maybe like the competitors who are trying to compete with you should take in mind to be successful in social commerce?
It's basically our vision. In social commerce, we have a vision to make the customer the king. The customer should be the benefactor. In terms of social commerce and the e-commerce, the customer is the most benefactor because he will buy the product from the trusted sellers who he knows. He has a relevance with the communities. He will get the products which will be quality checked by his sellers, the communities, and also the platform from where he is buying. So in the end, the customer is the benefactor who will gain the most in the social commerce process.
So well, you people have been really familiar with the kind of startup ecosystem we have in India. So we see a lot of startups coming in every day. We see a lot of startups coming out from every college, but a lot of them fail to sustain. A lot of them fail in the beginning. So what do you think is the one thing which is lacking in the youngsters of today? Is it the approach? Is it the commitment? Is it the determination?
Yeah, it's the same thing that happened with me. It's misconceptions. When we get into business for the first time, starting up, we are so excited that we leave out a lot of details. Initially, none of the entrepreneurs are much inclined towards getting into details. They get an idea, they are happy about it. For example, if they come across a product that no one has yet brought into the market, or a service that is yet not in the market, so they get a high that yes, this is the thing we have to do because there is no one who is providing this service. The question they should ask themselves is, why no one is providing that? What is the reason no one is thinking about it? So there are such details. Another thing, for example, if a person belongs from a marketing background or a IT background, so his complete belief is, I am a IT guy, I know information technology, I can program, I can write codes, so that's enough for the business. There is no need to learn finance, there is no need to learn logistics or team building and all those things. And also there is a lot of ego at initial stage, because entrepreneurship, startups, these all words have become a hype in these 5 years. 5 years down the line, it's going to be much more clear, very mature environment, I would say. But 5 years back, no one even knew what is startup. If you spell startup, they would say start and up is a different words. There is nothing like startup. And today, when they see everywhere, now Economic Times, the newspaper, they have almost 3 to 4 pages dedicated for startups. Every damn newspaper is dedicated columns for startups. So it has become a new hype. Everyone is talking about startups, calling themselves entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, gives them a hype. So what happens? One is this, they don't get into the details. Another, they don't have experience. The better approach, I would say, would be, if you are interested in working in an IT firm or starting up an IT firm, then why not go and get your hands dirty? No one is ready to dirty their hands. If you are going to start a restaurant, first learn cooking. Don't just depend on your chefs that they will cook the best food. You have to know it, how it is working. Get to the details, get your hands dirty. Only then it's possible. So I guess these are few of the reasons, and one of the most is misconception that most of them are not ready to fail. The best point I would say, they fail because they are not ready to fail.
Oh, well,
they never think a failure as an option.
So well, we were just talking about you starting with the venture at the age of 16 to 17, and now you are almost in late 20s. So over the period of like a decade or 8 to 9 years, what do you think has changed in the approach which the market has towards the youngsters? The kind of the kind of way the market sees the young entrepreneurs who are coming into the market and starting with the startups.
Okay. Actually, you won't believe, when I was 16 years old or 17 years old, I used to have very thin line of beards, and I purposely used to keep it just to show that I am much older than you think. Because the moment they realize that I am still in college, I have not passed out even high school or something, they would not even give us appointment or not even talk to us. So today it's not the case. Today they are ready to listen even if he is a 16-year-old person. What kind of experience you have, it doesn't matter what is your age, because people have seen now. Even you are so young and you have achieved so much. So these are the things that make people realize in India that yes, youngsters are now much more capable and they cannot just ignore them.
So you just spoke about the kind of scenario which India has towards the startups and the youngsters. So what do you think is the difference between the Silicon Valley of USA and the startups which are coming in India, or maybe like any other developing country like India?
See, USA Silicon Valley is very mature startup ecosystem that we have to understand first. They started when we didn't know how to spell startup. It was back 20 years ago, 25 years ago. So they have went through all these phases that we are going right now. The investors there are much more aware of the failure thing or startup things. The entrepreneurs are much more aware before getting into business. They are very much aware. Failure is not taboo there. People are ready to fall and again stand and again try. In India, it's not the case. India, it is very nascent stage. So expecting them to just uh, cope with USA Silicon Valley, it's not right. But then, yeah, we are doing good.
So and well, where the Silicon Valley of USA is today, how long you think Indian startup ecosystem should take to be there?
Actually, it's with Modi coming into power, I think it would take another 10 years. Otherwise, I would have said 50 years. It's just because he is taking such kind of initiatives, it is possible today that I can say 10 years down the line, we will be able to match Silicon Valley. Because unless and until government starts appreciating what entrepreneurs are trying to do, unless and until government starts beating their own traditional systems that they have built for the youngsters, like they have universities, you have to go through school, you have to go through college, you have to pass all those degrees, you need to have MBA degree, all these things, unless and until we break those rules and start again with a new mentality, it is not possible to match Silicon Valley. How many people are there in Silicon Valley that those believe that it is very necessary to complete the graduation? But in India, you cannot think about it. So though it may not fetch you a good job, still for society, for family, you need to complete graduation. And I would say MBA is new common thing. Unless and until you have MBA, you cannot just face the society. So I think in next 10 years the mentality will change, because a lot of people like you and me are coming up without degrees, and whatever we don't do on the basis of the qualification or degrees we have earned. We do it on the basis of experience we earned failing. So this is very important, and next 10 years I would say I would bet on that.
So how is or maybe like how important you think is it to be for the young entrepreneurs to be motivated, because this is one of the things which has been highlighted in the book as well, that more than experimenting with new things, it is important for you to be motivated right after the failure which you get from the last venture.
I would say determination is the most important factor in keeping your motivation. Determination to solve a problem. When you are trying to do a business, you try to solve a problem a customer is facing or any client. You are basically trying to solve a problem. It depends on the determination you have to solve that problem, however difficult it is, and that is what keeps you from trying once more, even after failing, trying again. And it's our motto among us, like our attempt will always be one more than our failure. So I would say determination is the most important factor which keeps the motivation going on.
See, people can't be motivated unless and until they get into for right reasons. See, if you get there for money, it's definitely going to cease to be a motivation, because after some time you realize that, oh, if I would have gone for MBA and a job, then I would be earning much more than this what I am earning right now. Because startup doesn't start paying you immediately. It would take minimum of 5 to 10 years. When you get into a business, please make up your mind for 10 years minimum. Only then you can reap the fruits. Another thing, uh, no one can keep motivating you all the time. If you go and watch Jack Ma's video, founder of Alibaba, so you will feel motivated for an hour maybe, or a day or 2 days. You go for a motivation session, you can be motivated for 1 day or 2 days. But then what? You will again get demotivated when a client says you no. So you have to be self-motivated, and that will come only if you get into business for the right reasons and you are fully aware what you are doing and why you are doing. If you have options, like if my business will fail, I have this IIT degree, IIM degree, I will go back to the job. So you are definitely going to be demotivated very soon. Why? Because you know you have got better options there. You need not work so hard, flog your ass so hard, because you have better options there where you will get paid easily. So if money is the motivation, it is definitely going to cease. If you have options, you are definitely going to go demotivated. The people like us, I would say, we have burnt our ships long back. Long back, we made a choice of not having a choice today. So 5 years ago, when I dropped out of engineering, I made a choice that 5 years later, even if I want to quit business, I wouldn't have choice, because today if I go to anyone, they are not going to admit me into an engineering college, or neither any MNC firm is going to give me a job. So I know I have been left with no other option but to be focused on what I have started. And when you don't have any option, of course you are motivated to do that thing, because that is survival instinct, and survival instinct is the biggest motivation, I would say, to do anything. Our whole human race has been evolving since then, fighting dinosaurs and whatnots. Just survival instincts.
Well, so the next thing which I actually want to ask is, what is that one factor which you think, if that factor is changed in the startup ecosystem of a developing country like India, as compared to the startup ecosystem in a country like USA, if that one factor is changed, it can bring the drastic change in the approach which we have towards the startups, or the startups have towards the market.
See, the answer is just one word: government. The major difference between USA or any European country and India is the approach of government towards the startups. In India, I would give a very simple example. If you want to open up I would say a current account in a bank, it takes you more than 4 or 5 days, a lot of effort to get first time get a current account opened. If you want to register for a taxation, see, taxation is something I am going to government and telling them, boss, I want to pay you. I am earning money. I want to pay you. I am registering myself. So this should be a very welcome thing. That yes, entrepreneur is so honest that he is coming by himself and telling us, please register me. I want to pay the tax. But you would not believe, it's a completely different situation. When I go for VAT registration in India, because I am selling product, I am making profit, and I have to pay tax. Honestly, it takes me more than a month to register for taxation. I am telling them, please take my money, and they are like, okay, wait for a month. And if I don't go by myself, then they will say, you are late, I would fine you. So this is something, a very hostile approach from a government towards startups, which is not the case in foreign countries. So once they make this process simple, like single window. Today, if you want to start a business, you have to go 4 to 5 places, get all the license sanctioned, get all the permissions, current account, all those things. And even if one person, one window calls you and say that no, we will not give you, all the efforts go waste. But if it becomes a single window, you will go there and they will have, like, within 2 days you will know whether this idea is viable or not, whether you can do it or not. Just this one thing can change everything. Now a lot of people, youngsters, they have very great ideas, but all those great ideas die. Why? because they are very much afraid of this government hostile approach. So they are not even ready to take a plunge. They are not ready to try. Once they know that government has become friends with the business, they are ready to help you. They are not ready. They are not here to cut your wings, and they are not here. They don't want to stop you. They want to help you fly. So they will also go and approach them. They will also try their level best. They will come up with great ideas, and that would be the day then when we will see Google and Facebook coming up in India.
Okay, so while we're talking about government being one of the factors, and one of the factors, if change that it can bring a drastic change in the kind of approach which startups has towards the market. So what do you think? Because the other term which I'm going to use in this interaction is funding, and funding has been one of the most biggest challenges for startups, at least in India, because pitching an idea in a country like USA and getting funding on that is far more easier than pitching the same idea in a country like India, and then trying to convince an investor and then getting the funding. So how big of a role you think the funding and the investment, the investor, these two terms play in the growth of the startup, and how do you think we can change the kind of approach which investors have towards the startups in India?
It has everything to do with the thing I said. US startup ecosystem is very mature, and Indian ecosystem is very at nascent stage. So the investors, of course, are afraid putting in money, so they tread with caution in India. While in USA, same VC, same VC or investor in USA have a different criteria for investment, and same VC in India would have a different criteria. For example, in USA, they are like, if they like the idea, they would invest the money. They would just see whether the team is eligible or not, the team is good enough or not, and they will invest the money. In India, it's not the case. They have 10 different criterias. They want to know whether you have a revenue model or not, whether you are making money or not, whether it's a successful model or not, whether you have paying customers, whether the team is qualified enough, whether the team has experience or not, or whether it is the first time you are starting up. You would see very low number of startups who are starting for the first time and they get funded. I would say it's a rare case in India. While in USA, it's very common. Instagram guy or the one who started Pinterest, these were all their first times, and they got funded very easily. They don't have a revenue model, but you wouldn't see a single business in India getting funded without a revenue model. They don't. So they want to be pretty sure that this idea is going to work in India. Also, another thing is, because US ecosystem have been exploring their market, US market, since decades, 2 decades I would say. But in India, the investors are very new to the Indian market. Indian market has been introduced with internet very recently, I would say, with mobile commerce very recently. So even these people don't know how they are going to react to this, how the buying behavior is going to change. So they are in complete confusion whether the customer will just go for search on YouTube, on Google and buy from a retail store, or whether they would do the buying here, whether they would ask for cash on delivery, whether they would pay via plastic money, whatnot. So there is a lot of confusion, and it would take next 10 years to investors to realize how this market is going to react, to predict the market. And unless and until they learn predicting the customers here, they are not going to believe the startups here. Because as a startup, I will talk everything that is good about us. I would very rarely talk what is not going to work, unless and until investor finds it out or he asks me. So in my back of mind, maybe I am also in doubt whether the customer will pay or not. But I would say yes, I have 10 lakh paying customers. The Indian market is very huge. True. Indian market is very huge. 100 crore people, 100 million people using internet, and next 500 million going to use internet very soon. It's a very huge market. But we are yet not able to predict how they are going to react. So that is one of the very major cause why investors are biased towards Indian startups, and they are very rightfully biased, I would say. Also, the entrepreneurs here, they have a very wrong misconception when they start business. They think that okay, we would start business, a very easy thing to do, 3 months down the line, we will get funding. Getting a funding, very easy thing to do. I have this contact, that contact. This is the case when they start. Once they get into business, they realize that okay, no one is going to fund you. A very simple thing, if Indian entrepreneurs follow, they would be saving a lot of effort, I would say. That you won't get funded if you go knocking VC's doors. You do your best, VCs will come knocking your door. And this is the only way you can get funded. So we have to, start learning to adapt to this kind of environment because US market is different and Indian market is different. And if you say that only when Indian market would become like US market and the VCs would start in investing in ideas like they do in USA, only then you will do a successful business. Then you are talking about an ideal environment. That means you will not going to succeed unless and you get an ideal environment. Then better you not start the business.
So well, when we're talking about the approach being changed, and I think angel and VCs have not, are not the only options we have for funding today. There's another third approach which has just come, known as crowdfunding. So how well you think crowdfunding has just come into the startup ecosystem, because we have seen a lot of startups raising money from the crowdfunding campaigns, from the from a lot of websites which are there online. So how what kind of role you think the crowdfunding is set to play in the coming years, and what kind of role is it playing right now in the growth of the startups?
I would say that crowdfunding concept has not even born in India, not in nascent stage. It is not even born in India because again government plays a very important role here. In India, this kind of crowdfunding is not legitimate. Crowdfunding in kind is fine. I mean, if you are putting in money, crowd is putting in money, people are investing money, they can get returns in kind. They cannot get returns in money terms. So this is a very big shortcoming in India for crowdfunding to bloom here. Also, the companies which have been very successful in crowdfunding are like Kickstarter.com. They have not yet stepped in into India. They still don't have option for people from Mumbai or Delhi starting up a campaign. There are some startups from India that have come up, but it is still not working. First, we have to understand how crowdfunding works. Basically, Indians think, because they are not that aware about crowdfunding, they think once we launch the campaign, people are going to put in money. No, it is not going to put in money. Crowdfunding is everything about relevance. Once you launch the campaign, you have to convince your friends first, your relatives first to put in money. It is not the money that they are putting in, they are putting the trust. And when other people see that this is the group of people who have put trust and this is not going to go in the wrong hands, then people start putting in money. So I would say it is still a very long way to go to see even crowdfunding playing even a 1% of role in this startup economy right now.
Well, so apart from the factors we spoke about today in the session, what else do you think is different, as compared to a startup ecosystem in India, and as compared to the startup ecosystem of the Silicon Valley of USA?
Okay, I would not say it's different, but something that we don't give much emphasis in India, that is networking. The difference between successful startups and mediocre or failed startups is networking. The kind of networking you can build, the kind of network you can build with your skills is very important. Whether you are an introvert guy or extrovert guy, doesn't matter. Once you are in a business, you have to be extrovert. You have to build a network for who will act like evangelists for you, who will keep pushing you, who will go and become your brand ambassadors, who will talk loud about you. So see, you never know. The next guy you are meeting may become very important in your business, may play a very important role. He might not be of that importance, but he might be knowing someone who can play a very important role for you. You never know. So keep networking. And this is something I would say that very much ignored thing in India. US they know very well. So from day one they start branding themselves. From day one they start networking. But in India it's like I am building my product. It's a private thing. First of all, people are very afraid in India even to discuss about their product. They think, oh, if I will tell about my idea, they might copy it. But that's the last thing anyone want.
So
The
apart
VC
from
or the angel investor, they really don't want a very good idea without a team to execute it. That's the last thing they want. So you can be very sure when you are sharing your ideas with these evangelists or VC or angels, it is not going to be copied. So just be free and talk about your idea. Just do networking, make contacts, and networking also, I would say, it is not like take and take relation. It is give and take relation. You help them, they will help you. So never go to an event with a mindset that I need to collect all the cards and keep calling them. No, instead of, you need to hear to the problems of everyone and see what you can do about it. You help them and definitely the karma will follow and they will help you back. So networking is something, if you do it in a right manner, it is going to take you to the great heights. Even if your startup fail and your networking won't. The network you created with that failed startup, it is going to go with you. You are going to carry it with you, and in next startup it will help you from start from a better level, from a better play.
So well, in the last answer, you spoke about a word called branding, and we haven't really spoken about it. So branding and marketing, according to me, it has a larger emphasis on the success of a startup, and we Indians do not really take care of that. We Indians do not really give much more emphasis on branding a product, and then maybe like marketing your idea, maybe even before you start, because we are too afraid of others stealing our idea, or maybe like there are so many other factors which do scare us. So how big of a factor you think the branding and marketing is?
Branding is a very big factor and it plays role from the day one. People here think like let's start a business, start a product, and once we go live, we will start branding. And how to do branding? They think it's by investing money in marketing. No, it's not the case. You start branding from day one, the day you conceptualize the idea, the day you started with it. If you keep branding in your mind since then, only then it's possible. How would be the packaging, how you are positioning yourself, how you think people would see you, perceive you. When you have all these things set, then I would say that you are working towards becoming a brand. Now, what is branding and why you need branding? It's like you are selling a product and so is other people. So are other people selling same kind of product? You have 10 sellers selling the same product. And when you place it differently from other 9, I would say it's branding. Because people recognize just one product which is similar to 9 other products, but they remember just one product. That is because they have a different perception about it, and that is what I call branding. And it doesn't come with just spending money on marketing. It comes from what goes into conceptualizing, what efforts you put behind it. From day one, you realize that okay, this is going to solve these problems. See, perfect. You have to be perfect when you are creating a brand. It's not that whether customer is going to find it out or not. That there is some mistake in the product or there is some shortcomings. It is if you know that there is some kind of shortcomings, you have to overcome it. You have to make it a perfect product, whether customer is going to see it or not. That I can say that goes for branding, and branding is like EMI. It is not one-time investment. You have to invest every next day into branding. Not just money, your efforts, your mind, your intellectual, everything. When people call out that name out of 10 different names of the same product, then I would say you have successfully become a brand. You have been recognized. Now we have a lot of people selling computers. Compaq is doing it, HP is doing it, Lenovo is doing it. But why I am naming only these 3 or 4 companies? Because I know them, I have heard about them, I have seen them. There are a lot other companies that they are doing, like Easy Computers, for example. You don't even know them. They are a local manufacturer here, but we don't know them. Why? Because they are not investing into branding. They are not thinking about branding. They are just another seller who is selling the same product. So branding is an intangible value that you inculcate into your product right from day one.
Well, so coming on to the last question, what I really want to ask you about your personal experience. That what have been those things which you have learned from your personal experience in last few years, and what are the tips? What are the kind of tips you will want to give to the newbie entrepreneurs who are coming and joining the startup ecosystem every single day?
What I've learned is when I look back, I can connect the dots. And when I connect the dots, all I can see is how important for me was to fail. Had my previous ventures not failed, I wouldn't have this kind of awareness or maturity that I have right now. So failure is something, I would say, ladder to next stage or success. That is one of the most important things. Another, you cannot be obsessed about your ideas, about your startups. Detachment is one of the very important qualities that you need to inculcate into yourself. Because the initial entrepreneurs, those who start for the first time, a very common phenomena you would find in them is they are very obsessed with their ideas. They would not share their ideas with others, thinking that it may get copied or stolen. Then they would not be ready to compromise with their ideas. See, if you try to sell what you think is the right product for the customer, you are bound to fail. What you have to sell is what customers are ready to buy. So to get that market product fit, you definitely you will not get that fit from the day one. You will start with your perception, your knowledge, your awareness about the product, and when you take that product to the market, slowly with all the failures and no's you get from there, you realize, okay, these are the changes I need to do, these are the cuts I have to make, these are the additions I need to make. If you are obsessed with your idea, you will not do that. So being detached is very important. A very good example I can give you is about Instagram. The first version of Instagram, when they started, it was not just a photo social blogging site. It was not just that you are sharing photos. They had videos, they had audios, they had putting up updates, sharing everything. But in the process of getting product and market fit, they kept on reducing features. And ultimately what they got was just one feature: you can upload your photo and share. That's it. And it was a huge hit. It couldn't have been possible if they were very obsessed with their idea that no, this is the thing that customers should take. As I say, customers are the king. So you have to go according to them. For that, you need to shed your obsessiveness, your ego with that. So that is one very important lesson I learned through this journey. That obsession is not very good for your health, for your startup's health. So we shed obsession, we shed ego, then we accept failures. Now failure has become like a friend. When you start, you don't start with belief that you are going to fail, but you start with a belief that I will try no matter what, and also with a promise that even if I fail, I will just make a few changes to it what caused the failure. I would start again. No harm in it. But I am not obsessed with that. I need to get success within 2 days, 4 days, 5 days. People need to buy the same product. I am here to learn. I have come with my product, but I say that I am very open for the opinions. I am here with a wish list. I give this wish list to everyone whom I meet, and they start jotting down their points. And when I find that okay, these are the points that I can include and these are the points I need to get rid of, I do that. So this is the same tip also I can give to the new entrepreneurs, that burn all your ships, I would say. Don't keep options. If you have options, it helps you to create doubts. I would say help, because you don't need it purposely, but it creates doubt within your mind, because back of your mind you always know, see, I have got this degree, I have got this value in market, if I fail I can go there. Continuously when you think about it, you are bound to fail. Another thing, once you have burned the ship, you can only do was focus on the your startup, your idea, and you tend to become obsessive when you are completely focused only on this idea. I'm not saying that don't get focused, but being focused also, you can start working on being detached. So that is another thing you need. And another most important thing is networking. Like I said, networking is the most important thing. And stop complaining. If you say that government is not helping, if you say that that guy's business idea was mediocre and he got funded and I didn't get funded, so this is not an excuse. If you give these kind of 10 reasons and you complain about it, it really means that you can only work in idealistic situation which you are not going to get in India ever. you will never get a level playground. You have to start what you are left with the resources you have, and just start with belief and all these detachment and all these networking things, and you will definitely do good. If you are lucky, you will definitely be successful in an year maybe. If you are not lucky, then maybe in 5 years. If you are really very 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 unlucky, then in next 15 years. But success is definitely going to come to you if you keep trying. So I would like to end all these sessions by just one thing: make one more attempt than failure. Definitely one day failure would be tired, and failure would just take one break and fail, and then that would be the point when you will succeed.
Well, so Aman and Sumit, it was really nice having you people on the show, and as I told in the beginning as well, that this was pretty interesting. I've known you people for a bit of time now, and it was really interesting to have you people on board. And well, I really hope to have you again on the show. Thanks a lot for being a part of Startup
Thanks a
Studio.
lot.
Thank you for giving us
and
the
I'll see you at the other videos. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Well, so here we go. The second episode of the series actually included Aman and Sumit from Monk.Bro, and I really hope that the session was interesting. And if you like the content shared on this channel or on the series, please like and comment on the videos. Share it with your friends, and do not forget to subscribe. I'll share the other videos next Tuesday at the same time. Thanks a lot till then.